All right. You know what we need? We need a gong. We need like a great big gong to start the morning off. Good morning. You're listening to the morning call on WJOB 1230 AM and 104.7 FM. The TuneIn app and YouTube Live. It's Tom Dabertin with you until 9 o'clock this morning. Great to be here. We'll start out with traffic and weather. And traffic in northwest Indiana and the Chicago area is in great shape right now. In spite of the fact that we had some rain overnight, it is moving extremely well. Probably the best traffic I've seen in a long, long time. There are no known backups, according to the traffic map that I'm looking at. 8094, I-65, the Indiana Toll Road, Klein Avenue, all in great shape. Go across the line into Illinois. Even the Bishop Ford looks great this morning. Dan Ryan is in good shape until you get to about 35th Street, excuse me. That's the only reported backup right now in the Chicago market. So we're looking great this morning and great to be here with you. But let's go to Lynette, and she's going to tell you about weather.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 37 degrees with highs of 68 and lows of 54. It's going to have a thick cloud cover this morning, then clouds and sunshine this afternoon, windy and warmer. Later tonight will be windy with thickening clouds and a couple of late showers. Then tomorrow on Thursday, we'll be having highs of 70 and lows of 44 with a shower in the area early in the morning. Clouds giving way to some sun and breezy. And then Friday, we'll be having highs of 50 and lows of 37. Will be cooler, a little morning rain followed by clouds giving way to some sun.
There you have it. 68 degrees today. Sounds great. Good time to get out in the yard and pick up the winter debris and start cutting the grass. It's that time, folks. And just an update, I see that the traffic map is now updated, and there is a slowdown at the top end of the Bishop Ford as it merges with I-57, but looks still pretty good. So just to give you an update of where we're at, the price of Brent crude, which is what our oil prices and our gasoline prices are based off of in the United States, has dropped more than 15% today and 13% yesterday. It is down to $93.70 a barrel. That's an unbelievable drop just from yesterday's close of $109. It keeps on dropping. Started dropping yesterday at about 6 p.m., and it is really in a free fall right now. So my question to all the gas station owners and all the refineries is, when are we going to see that type of reduction in the price of gas? Because it is in a free fall right now due to the ceasefire that was announced last night in the Middle East. Good news as far as I'm concerned for everyone. Once again, I don't understand how people can go on and they'll vilify good news. So the same people who were saying that the war is tragic and shouldn't happen last night were saying that Trump's a sellout. So it's like, okay, can't win. Do I agree with Donald Trump's comments the other day? Absolutely not. I think it's a tragedy that he basically threatened annihilation of a civilization. But for whatever reason, it seems to have gotten the attention of the Iranians, and they're all talking. And that's where we really, I think, want to be, is we want to make sure that they're talking. We don't need the hyperbole and the some of the threats that Donald Trump makes. I think the world understands that we're the only true superpower, and let's leave it at that. And we don't need to harp on things. But the fact is that peace may be a fragile peace may be at hand with Iran and in the Middle East. And again, as far as gas prices in the United States, Brent crude right now is trading at $93 a barrel, and it is dropping like a rock. So I want to know when we're going to see relief at the gas pump, because when it went up, we saw those prices increase almost overnight, and now they're going down. So let's see them decrease overnight, but it's not going to happen. 845-1100 is the number to call. We'll just point out we've got a couple of guests this morning at 7 o'clock. Scott Miller's coming in at 7:35. We have a paid political program from Jerry Williams for county sheriff. And at 8 o'clock, John Doherty's coming in because John didn't come in last week since we had the bishop. So we're here till 9 o'clock. We'll take your calls and look forward to talking to you this morning. Again, some local news. The lockout with NIPSCO, There was a great big rally yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend it, but there were several hundred people at the NIPSCO locations in Hammond. And I know that trucker Mike called me, and he was there, and he said he'd call in this morning, so I'll let him talk about it. But it's nice to see that people showed up to support NIPSCO. What I want to know is, what is NIPSCO going to do if we have a major storm? This past weekend, we had a minor storm, a very minor situation, and power was out for 30 hours. On the very north end of Hammond, folks, it's the Roby area where where Walmart and a number of other shopping or stores are and restaurants. It's where the ramp is to get to Horseshoe Casino, and the power was out for 30 hours. It's totally unacceptable. All right, first off, NIPSCO talks about how they're gouging us with higher rates because they need to update their equipment. And that is an area, if there's ever been an area that needs steel poles, I don't know of another area, or needs buried underground cables, that's it. There is an accident up on Indianapolis Boulevard near the state line almost every single day. Every day. So when you go through and you say, oh, wow, there's an accident, well, it's like for those of us that live up in Whiting, Robertsdale, we see it all the time. And they know it's a problem. They know they're going to have accidents, and then it takes 30 hours for some crew to show up to fix the problem. Absolutely ridiculous. And again, just a quick shout out to all the men and women that are involved in the lockout or strike over at BP Oil. Drove by this morning, honked the horn as I always do, and again, BP Oil has made a massive amount of money, and they've been a massive inconvenience to this region, and I want to see gas prices drop. So let's see if BP Oil is listening this morning. But we have other people listening. We have callers, so let's go to the callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Tom, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm reading the Post-Tribune article on the SSCBA lawsuit against Batistatos.
Mm-hmm.
Ongoing, and we're already at $1.3 million.
Yes?
You have no retort, Tom?
Well, I can't talk about it because I'm named in that suit, so I can't talk about it. I didn't bring the suit. The suit was brought against us, myself and other board members and the CVA, so I can't talk about that suit, unfortunately.
This is absolutely ridiculous. We're in a $1.3 million and growing lawsuit because we can't pick the right people to lead that organization.
Well, that's not the basis of the lawsuit, and again, I can't talk about it. I'm sorry. So if you're involved in a lawsuit, you can't talk about it either. So I just can't talk about it.
Well, I would welcome the callers. I'm wondering where that money comes from to pay these legal fees. And we went from Batistatos to Dave Uran, and obviously, as a taxpayer, I can't know anything about what he did or didn't do. I'm just wondering how we read people to lead the organization.
So I was off the board when
Uran.
I was off the board when Uran was let go. So I don't know the details, and I know as much as you do because I was no longer on the board. But I can't talk about the lawsuit by Mr. Batistatos. I've been advised by counsel not to do so. You brought up the fact that it's extremely expensive, and the last thing that I want to do is say something that would cause the lawsuit to continue and it become more expensive than it already is.
Let me ask you this, and I think you can answer this without jeopardizing anything in your involvement.
Okay.
My tax dollars, do any of my tax dollars go to fund that SSCBA?
No, the Convention and Visitors Authority is funded solely through the hotel tax. So if you stayed in a hotel in Northwest Indiana, then you would pay that tax. Otherwise, there is no tax dollars that fund the CVA.
I just think reading that figure and it's not settled, it blows my mind.
Well, I don't
Have a good
disagree
day.
with you. I don't disagree with you. But, hey, by the way, let me ask you this. Since you're on the phone, let me ask you about NIPSCO and BP. What are your comments about those situations? Because those are also impacting taxpayers and every resident in Northwest Indiana.
You know what, Tom? I don't know anybody that works for either one of those that I can trust to give me the skinny on what is actually occurring. I have to believe those people make a good living, and I have to believe that they know their job inside and out, whether it's a lineman when we have a storm. Again, we're not doing any good when we're not talking, but it's concession on both parts. But again, I know that's a blanket statement, and everybody and their brother knows that. But when is enough on both sides? The corporation's greed and the worker asking for more. So I don't have a knowledgeable comment on it, Tom. I'm sorry.
All right. Very good. Thanks so much for the call. 845-1100 is the number to call. And again, I'll talk about anything, but obviously if I'm restrained legally, I can't talk about it. I do think that, there's the potential always of any suit being settled or being closed out. But again, I don't have any direct knowledge. I'm simply named in the suit, not been really an active participant, but I just can't talk more about it. I wish I could. 845-1100. My bigger question is we have two issues that are affecting Northwest Indiana right now. We had one that affected a large shopping area and commercial district, the area around the casino in Hammond this past weekend for 30 hours because NIPSCO locked out its employees and there wasn't anybody that could go out and basically rehang some downed wires. Just to me, it's egregious. It's ridiculous. And speaking to friends of mine in the Hammond Police Department and the Hammond Fire Department, it is on average 3 to 5 times a week that they have an accident up there that involves a utility pole. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. NIPSCO can tell you all it wants about how they're upgrading their systems, but why wouldn't you upgrade an obvious area where you have to send your crews out all the time to fix the problem? And then you have a lockout and it takes 30 hours to fix it. So that's one. And then the cost of gasoline in the region right now hovers around $4, between $3.70 and $4 a gallon. And so far today, the cost of Brent crude per barrel is down 15%. It is dropping like a brick, and it's dramatically lower than yesterday. And I haven't seen any adjustments at the pump, but every time the price of oil goes up, you see an immediate change in the price of gas at the pump. So where's our break on that one, folks? I'd like to see it. And BP Oil, one of the largest refineries in the world, is just up the street over here. Because of a lockout, there's people on strike, and BP needs to be a good corporate citizen and needs to lead the way since they supply so much fuel to the Midwest. They need to lead the way in reducing the cost of gas in Northwest Indiana, which I pointed out last week is amongst the highest that you'll find between here and Florida. 845-1100 is the number to call. How do you feel about the fragile peace in the Middle East? It seems to have a positive impact, of course, on oil prices. They believe the stock market is just going to be one hellacious ride today upward. It's going to shoot up like a rocket, and it probably will, which is good news for a lot of us with investments and 401ks and those kinds of things. But what happens in the next 2 weeks is going to really tell the story. I think that there's still a lot of daylight between the Trump administration and the Iranian leadership. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done. So it'll be an interesting 2 weeks. 845-1100 is the number to call. And again, we'll be here till 9 o'clock, but we're going to have some guests beginning in the 7 o'clock hour, and that's going to extend to about 8:30. So now's the time to call. I'll also point out that I'll be here tomorrow morning. It's a twofer. It's like the old Certs breath mints, if anybody remembers that. Certs used to say two mints in one. Well, you get two Toms in 1 week. There you go. Except that Lynette won't be here. It'll be Joe filling in instead. So we'll have to train Joe. Lynette and I work well together, and it's always a joy and a pleasure to work with her. So I will be sitting here with Joe tomorrow morning until I believe 9 o'clock again. We have the North Township show, so I'll be here until 9 a.m. Again, 845-1100 is the number to call. We can talk a little bit of basketball. Do you know who won the NCAA tournament?
Of course not.
Of course not. Michigan. It was a very exciting game. Came down to the last minute. UConn could have won it. I predicted Michigan from the get-go would probably win the NCAA tournament. That doesn't mean that my brackets made any sense. In fact, probably the only team that I got right was Michigan. All the other games I pretty much got wrong, but I thought Michigan just had an immense ability and just great athletic prowess, and they proved me to be correct on that one. Watching the game, the last minute, 30 seconds, UConn was down at 1 point by only 4 points, and 4 points is nothing in a basketball game these days with 3-point shots. And it looked for a minute like UConn might be able to pull it off, and they had a couple of missed shots, a couple of shots that hung around on the rim for a bit, and again, Michigan pulled through and won the NCAA tournament, so that was kind of good news in predicting that one. Why don't we go to a quick break, and then we'll come back and take another look at traffic, because I see that there's some changes coming up. So let's take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Call on WJOB 1230 AM and 104.7 FM. We'll be right back.
Summer's coming, and Deep River Water Park is taking applications for all positions. We have jobs both inside and out for all ages that offer great benefits. Free admission on your day off for you and a friend. Free uniforms, paid training, make new friends, flexible scheduling, and more. To apply, just go to deepriverwaterpark.com and you're on your way to a summer of rewarding fun.
Deep River Water Park. It's simply splash-tastic.
Plumbers Local 210 is building the future, and we're looking for service plumbers to join our team. Our training center invests nearly $500,000 every year to make sure our members are the best in the industry. From a 5-year apprenticeship and an associate degree at Ivy Tech to ongoing certifications in safety and new technology, our plumbers are trained for excellence. Every member is drug tested and licensed for your safety and peace of mind. When you need plumbing work done, make sure you ask for the license. It's your right to ask.
Introducing Powers Health, a health system with a new name and a strong legacy of caring for families in our community. One with a tradition of advanced specialized services and a vision for the future. One with a commitment to medical excellence and compassionate care. Everything we do, everything we believe, powers health.
Life's biggest challenges don't come with a warning. When legal issues arise, whether it's a car accident, personal injury, criminal charge, or representing you before municipal boards, you need a trusted advocate on your side. At Westland & Bennett, we listen first because your story matters. We provide strategic, personalized legal solutions to protect your rights, your freedom, and your future. Peace of mind starts with a conversation. Call 219-440-7550 today for a free consultation.
Back in just a quick update, I mentioned that the Dan Ryan was flowing so well, and now there's a backup going all the way to 47th. So a friend of mine texted me and said, hey, you need to take another look at the map because there's a backup. So there we go. 845-1100 is the number to call. This past Sunday was Easter. It was kind of cold, but it was sunny out. I ushered at St. John with Rick Mossels and the rest of the crew, as we do every Sunday. It was the largest attendance that I've seen in church probably in at least a decade, maybe more. We actually had to seat people, which is a rarity at St. John because it's such a large church. But we were seating people, and we were probably down to less than 50 seats available by the middle of Mass. So it was nice to see all those people return to church. There have been a number of stories, and we had the bishop on last week, and there's kind of a resurgence in interest in attending Mass, especially in the Catholic Church. And so it was kind of nice to see that, and I just wanted to report on the results. So 845-1100, we've got more callers. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Tom.
Good morning, Mike. And I
doing?
said before you were at the NIPSCO protest yesterday.
Yeah, I'll talk about it in a second, but I want to ask a question. You're talking about, how Michigan and UConn played. And
Yeah.
Michigan kind of won the game, Kind of won the game. Illinois should have took it. I mean, not Illinois, UConn. I mean, I wish Illinois would have beat UConn and then been Illinois and Michigan.
Oh, it'd been a great game if it were two Big Ten teams. It would have
Yes.
been a great game. You're right.
But we got two states, Alaska and Hawaii, okay, that's, kind of not attached to the United States, Now, Hawaii, do they have a basketball, football, or baseball team in Hawaii and Alaska?
Well, not
I know if they
professional,
don't
not
have it in
professional, but
Hawaii.
there are college teams. Sure, there's college teams. And by the way, I forgot to give the one-word weather report this morning, and it's frosty, courtesy of Rick Mossels. So today's one-word weather report is frosty. But Hawaii actually has some. The University of Hawaii has teams, both football and basketball. I know that. They usually hold. They usually
NFL,
hold. Well, they usually hold like the Pro Bowl in Hawaii as well for football. So there are athletic facilities, at least on outside Honolulu. I've seen them myself. So I think.
Yeah, I was just curious because I wonder what it would look like to watch the baseball players and the football players if they had a major team playing against here in the States wearing a grass skirt,
Well,
it'd be or would they? In Alaska, if we had teams in Alaska, they probably wouldn't know how to take off all their layers of clothes to play a team, But I think the reason they don't have a professional football or basketball team in Hawaii is because it's hard to bounce and throw a pineapple. I'm just joking about
Well,
that,
I will say I've been to Hawaii before, and it's beautiful. I think that people who live in Hawaii, it's like anywhere else. We go there and say it's paradise and it's spectacular, but I told the story before, Mike. Years ago, when I went there, I took a cab from the airport, and the cab driver asked me where I was from, and I said, the Chicago area, and he got all smiley-faced and said, you're so lucky compared to me. And I said, what are you talking about? You live in paradise. And he said, yeah. He said, it's the same paradise every day. We get up, it's sunny, it's blue sky, and then we repeat that. We don't get a lot of thunderstorms, and we don't get, snow. We don't get those kinds of things. And he was lamenting how he wished that he could have snow and he could have thunderstorms there, and they rarely have it. But as I mentioned before, when I'm down in Florida, the average high is like 81 and the low is 70. So it's kind of the same way, and the weather can get a little boring. But Hawaii, again, I don't know that much about their sports program. I know very little, and I'm looking it up as we speak because I don't know much at all about college sports in Alaska. So I'm pulling it up, and it actually has a list of college sports. Well, there's a couple of Division II teams, but I don't see a whole lot on Division I. So there's Division II, but not a lot of Division I. And ice hockey and basketball. Ice hockey and basketball are the two main sports.
Yeah, now we'll switch over to NIPSCO lockout. You know, I went over there because of a reason that I donated the hot dogs, the chips, and the water. Big Frank's from East Chicago.
Big Frank sausage.
And got all the hot dogs ready. Yeah, he got it all ready. I went over there and picked it up, took it to them guys, and they had me parked right next to their canopy, so I was stuck there from the whole rally, which was very good. I mean, I enjoyed it. I was looking in the crowd because if you would have showed up, there'd been no problem finding you as tall as you are. But it was, I was talking amongst a whole bunch of people and of the union workers and everything, and very interesting. And then the fun part about the whole day was good. The whole thing was good. It was excellent. People were peaceful, calm, and just, getting their views out. And then, but the thing about it is I'm walking around and I'm talking to people, and a couple times somebody tapped me on the shoulder and says, "You're Trucker Mike." And I turn around like, "Yeah, you must listen to JOB." "Yeah." I said, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm not going to tell you." But then now there was one person, I'm leaning up against a truck, and this person walked up and said something, and I knew that person was from WJOB. And I about fell over because, people have fun on this radio and make their voice their opinions and everything. And I asked that person, "What's your name?" Wouldn't tell me, but you know what? I don't care, because you know what? I finally heard his voice in person. But the thing about it is, you're talking about how 30 hours of power was out. Okay, the workers just want a fair wage and fair contract. But they're mostly concerned because they are family. They pay NIPSCO bills. They have NIPSCO. And they're telling me, NIPSCO's not going to, like the Hammond Fire Department or any fire departments that are within the NIPSCO area, when they have a house fire, NIPSCO's out there right away to shut the gas off, take care of matter.
And the electrical.
And I had already talked to Hammond Fire, few fire people, and they expressed the same thing. Now they're a little worried. They want to make sure the gas gets shut off, and the experienced NIPSCO people that have worked there 25, 26 years, all these people that work there, they know, and they get out there and they know right off the spot and exactly what to do. But now you've got NIPSCO trying to get these independent, non-union contractors and people to come out, and they really don't have knowledge of what they're doing. And it's going to be a little, when, we got to pay our NIPSCO bill. Well, like you said, 30 hours your NIPSCO is out, that's one day. Now, is NIPSCO going to give us credit?
No, they don't. So NIPSCO, so Mike, NIPSCO is a utility, and they're a regulated monopoly, so they also have some pretty significant legal protection from being sued for power outages and things. Hey, we've got some additional calls, but real fast, I want to go back to your question. The University of Hawaii basically plays in the Mountain West Conference, and the nearest Mountain West Conference member is Northern Illinois University. So they do have basketball, men's and women's, baseball, football, and women's soccer. They don't have men's soccer, but there you go. They do have some division. They do have a Division One lineup with the University of Hawaii. Hey, thanks so much, Mike, for the call. We've got additional callers. All right.
I always finish up. Everybody have a safe and wonderful day, and be safe. Okay.
All right. You as well. Take care. 845-1100. We've got callers. Let's go to those calls.
Well, I've lived in Hawaii for 2 years, and I traveled all over Alaska. Living in Hawaii for 2 years, after 2 years, I was happy to leave. I was so living in summer and spring year round was boring. And now, if you're a golfer, it's perfect. You get wonderful weather year round. And I tried golfing, and I found it boring.
So you're
So I
like the
was happy
cab
to
driver.
leave.
You're like the cab driver that I talked about who said the same thing. It's just boring.
Yes, it is. And Alaska, I've been to Alaska 5 times, including Barrow, Alaska, which is the most northern city in America. And as it turns out, they had a football team, and it included, there was boys and girls on the same team.
Really?
And apparently one of the top players of the was a girl, and but they do a lot of traveling.
Well, they have to, because when you think about how big Alaska is, I mean, and by the way, so we're also giving tips to Lynette. She and I were talking, and she said at some point she wants to go on vacation. So sounds to me like you want to go to Hawaii, but just for a visit, and then Alaska maybe not so much. I mean, Alaska is so enormous when you think about the size, Walt. If you're playing in sports and the scarcity of the population, you'd be traveling for hours just to get from one opponent to another, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
So let me ask you this, Walt. You've sat through an awful lot over the years. You've seen an awful lot. Doesn't it annoy you a little bit that every time oil goes up, gas prices shoot up overnight? And here, oil has been dropping just like a lead balloon today. I mean, it's literally in a free fall right now. It's down to $93 a barrel. Okay, it was at $110 yesterday, so it's dropping, and very quickly. And you haven't seen gas prices drop like that, have you?
No, but that's corporate America. I mean, I was part of corporate America for 10 years, and they're looking for every opportunity to kick up the price. That goes over well. But when it comes time to letting the price go back down because of market forces, they're not so free market devotees as they are on the upside. That's very, very common in corporate environments, from my experience.
Well, and then I don't know if you had heard about it, but we had some thunderstorms over the weekend, and it led to a crash and a down power line up near the state line, and it took the NIPSCO replacement crews 30 hours to rehang those lines. And so you had Walmart, you had a bunch of restaurants, I mean, all kinds of fast food restaurants, a bunch of other stores over near the state line in Hammond were out for a total of 30 hours. NIPSCO's answer is sorry. I mean, that's all they can say. They can't. They don't have any legal responsibility because they're a regulated utility. So they can't be sued for the fact that Walmart lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in that store for being closed. I mean, the day before Easter, that's a very busy day for shopping. And there's some clothing stores. There's a Ross. There's a few others over there. I mean, they all got hurt. The restaurants got hurt, and it's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, well, it took us 30 hours to get a crew out there. I mean, to me, that just galls me that they could get away with that.
You're a guy that has a lot of contacts. Have you heard anything through the grapevine that maybe things are going to be wrapped up, or that's ongoing?
You know what? With both, I've not heard anything. Nothing good. Let's put it that way. I think BP were too far away from their London headquarters for them to really give a darn. I think that's putting it very mildly. I think we're in for a long strike for BP. And NIPSCO, once again, NIPSCO is no longer a Northwest Indiana or Northern Indiana company. Yeah, the name says that, but they're owned by they're a subsidiary. And so, once again, every time I've negotiated contracts, and I've negotiated about 150 labor contracts over the years, the farther away you get from the headquarter operations, the harder it is to bring closure and basically to get a contract. It just makes sense that the farther the distance for the approvals and the oversight that has to go into contract negotiations, the farther away it is, the longer it takes. I know we work at the speed of light these days. We have Zoom and we have WebEx and Teams and phones and everything else, but it just slows things down. They don't understand, as Jed and I were talking last week, they don't understand the local impact. That's what's lost. And so I think these strikes are going to last a while. I really do. I hope I'm wrong.
Here's an article out of the Times, April 7th. Headline, Bluegrass founder owned sound while working in the region, referring to Bill Monroe.
You broke up for a second. Say that again.
The headline for this story out of the Times is, Bluegrass founder honed sound while working in the region, referring to Bill Monroe, the music artist.
Yes, I mentioned that many times. He and his brothers came up from Kentucky to Whiting and actually worked at the old Sinclair oil refinery and started playing for events, weddings, and backyard parties and whatnot. And their music became popular because, in many ways, it reminded a lot of East Europeans of some of the music that's found in Eastern Europe. And so they became popular. Then Monroe left here, went down. He was one of the founding fathers of the Grand Ole Opry and basically founded the whole genre of bluegrass music and considered one of the fathers of modern country music. So, and that all happened up in Whiting, Robertsdale, and North Hammond. Absolutely true.
I took the family down to Nashville, Indiana, for a long weekend, and they held a Bill Monroe festival during the year. Of course, at the time, I had no idea that he had his roots in the region, and of course, they referred to a family by the name of Dabertin. Did you see the article?
Sure, because my brother David is one of the experts on region history, and David really is the driving force to in regard to people looking at the history of Bill Monroe. I mean, David was the guy that discovered it largely. He's the one that first started talking about Bill Monroe and his both his impact on the region and the region's impact on him. And so, yeah, David is a phenomenal expert on region history. I take a backseat to him in any conversation when it comes to the history of the region. He's amazing. He's one of the probably most informed experts on history in Northwest Indiana. Spends a great deal of time researching things, and he's really the kind of the one who led the whole discussion of Bill Monroe. So, and you don't have to take my word for it. Jed just walked in, and Jed always says the same thing, that David is an amazing historian. So, but he's an attorney, so he likes to do research, and again, he's certainly left his mark on the region as far as region history. That's for sure.
When it comes to music, I'm basically Mozart string quartet kind of guy, but I do like bluegrass. There's a classic sound to it. It's the classical Americana, and I'm glad that there's somebody around here that is keeping up on that. I grew up in East Chicago during the era when there were a lot of people who moved into the area from Kentucky, Tennessee, and also Alabama. They don't mention Alabama because there was a steel mill down in northern Alabama that went under, and so a lot of the people who worked in those steel mills came up to northwest Indiana to work at the steel mills here, and it was a time when the whole civil rights issue, so-called, was big, and the national and big city media did not represent the South very kindly. I mean, you'd think that every Southerner owned a slave. Of course, that was the reality is that only like 10% of the Southern population owned slaves, and of course there were black slave owners in the South, and so I think that the people from the South were a little bit on the low end of the totem pole, and they were referred to collectively as KY. KY as in Kentucky, short for Kentucky. So if you had a Southern accent, they'd say KY.
Well, you know what's interesting? You mentioned you mentioned accents, and we've got some additional callers, so we're gonna have to move on. Maybe we can pick this up in the 8:30 half hour. But you mentioned accents, and it's amazing to me how strong the accents are in Southern Indiana, and they seem to be stronger at times than when you talk to people from areas like Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia. There's a very strong accent in Southern Indiana, and it always amazes me because Indiana really isn't that South. But Walt, we need to move on, and good talking to you. And again, if you want to give us a call back in the 8:30 half hour, you're welcome to do so. 845-1100 is the number to call, and we've got more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, MX. How are you?
Good. Could I ask Joe a question?
Can you ask who?
Joe, your producer, a question?
No, Joe's not here today. Today's Lynette. Tomorrow is Joe.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd ask Lynette, but...
Oh, you can ask Lynette. She'll answer. She'll answer.
Lynette, I was kind of nosy what went on in the meeting yesterday.
Nothing too interesting.
Nothing interesting. Well, there you go.
Okay. When we used to go in with management, you always had to have representation. Ain't that right, Tom?
Oh, absolutely.
If you go in with management, I just wanted to know, but... And I'm not picking on nobody, okay, when I say this statement. After listening to yesterday's show, and I can't call because they hang up on all of us, that's why they don't get no callers, and we were serious about BP. After I listened to yesterday's show, and I'm not being mean, it's a good show, I realize now we can't have a woman president, okay?
I don't know that you want to say that. I don't think you want to base your opinions on whether we should ever have a woman president based on what you hear on these airwaves on Tuesday. I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, but a bit of a stretch might be a good thing, like Jimmy Hoffa would say. Now, at what point, because I'm all union, I buy all this union stuff, and I don't know, I don't think it's helping, okay? But at what point, when somebody's got a AR pointed at your bedroom where you're sleeping, do you call the police? And he's sitting there pointing it at your house. At what point do you call the police? You just say, oh, wait, we'll just let him shoot our family members. Or maybe he won't, but every time I walk in the house, he's got an AR on a tripod pointed at my house in my bedroom. At what point do you call? What point do you call, Tom?
Well, I would call...
And this is what's going on with Iran. At what point... They declared war 47 years ago. That's what upset me about that program yesterday. I wanted to call in, but they hang up on us regular callers. At what point does somebody do something? I mean, let's face it. Obama tried the right thing. he was the president. He thought that giving them $1.7 billion in cash, Iranians would say, you know what, we're not going to build a nuclear arms. We're going to build our cities.
MX, I will totally agree with you that negotiating with the Iranians has been a failure for every president, all the way back, with one minor exception, which was Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan, basically before he took office, he made clear to the Iranians what he would do to them if they didn't release the hostages. And so he dealt with them from a standpoint of force and strength, and it worked. And everyone after H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, Biden, and even the first Trump, it didn't work. Okay, now Trump did take out Soleimani, and maybe it got their attention a little bit. I agree. Negotiating with the Iranians is a almost an impossibility, because they're so indoctrinated with their religious beliefs that they believe, again, that if they lose their life, they're going to go to heaven and get 70 virgins or whatever it is. It's very complicated, and I don't know that you can really talk when you talk about Iran with negotiations. It seems like Trump has made some threats, some of which I think could have been said in a lot better manner. But Trump is not a politician, and he kind of shows that day in and day out. But he's gotten their attention, and they're finally talking. I don't know where we're going to end up in 2 weeks. I'm hopeful that this is all over. I'm hoping that we can get a deal with them. I don't know what's left for them to really negotiate with. I mean, we've taken out just about everything that's important to them.
Now, yesterday, and I liked the show yesterday, because you got to think how other people think. At what point, they never said on that show, "Death to America," on yesterday, Tuesday show. So now we got a tripod and we got an AR pointed at my house, and the guy's got it, and she says, "Death to MX." You know what? I'm not going to call the police. This is a lower scale. I'm trying to put this down to a lower scale, so people understand the Tuesday show. So now, they never mentioned Death to America, right? They never mentioned them Marines they made fun of. We're gonna, those people over there, they're wipe out a whole generation. But if you don't open up that Strait of Hormuz, okay, you're wiping other generations out. I never heard that either. You can't constantly be one-sided. I would like to call in, but they, you know what? That's why they don't get no calls, because they cut you off. At what point?
MX,
let me just, do I call the police?
Well, let me just bring this up. This just came from Paul Goddard. He just sent this to me. I really appreciate all the work Paul Goddard does, both from Region News Source, just from Region News Source, and also from making me look good over the years, because he likes to text me things. But this is the latest announcement from Donald Trump. Okay, the United States will work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what will be a very productive regime change. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States will, working with Iran, dig up and remove all deeply buried nuclear dust thanks to B-2 bombers. It is now and has been under very exacting satellite surveillance. And then he has in parentheses Space Force. Nothing has been touched from the date of attack. We are and will be talking tariff and sanctions relief with Iran. Many of the 15 points have already been agreed to. Thank you for your attention in this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So it sounds, that is from, I believe this says from a couple of minutes ago now. That sounds quite promising. I mean, if that's the case.
Now, 9/11. Bill Clinton said many times they had Osama bin Laden in their sights. That means they could have took him out. And Clinton said, don't do it.
Clinton
you
regrets,
agree with that, right?
Absolutely. And what I've read from Bill Clinton is Bill Clinton says it's his biggest regret that he should have taken out of bin Laden when he had the chance. He had several chances, and he decided that it wasn't a good move and it was a failure. And again, look, if you go through history and you look at the way we've dealt with Iran, it sure hasn't worked. It seems like this is promising, but at the same time, is it necessary for Donald Trump to drop F-bombs on Easter? Is it necessary for him to say that he's going to destroy an entire civilization? I think those are the kinds of things that just are unnecessary. Everybody knows the prowess of the U.S. Armed Forces.
I could care less if he jumped up and smashed a bunch of Easter eggs, and I don't care about his language. I don't want a nuclear bomb in my backyard. Okay?
I agree.
If you listen to George Patton, he said, and Google it, you don't know what hell looks like from the top. And that's where Trump got that. It's going to look like hell when I'm done.
Well, you and I have
everything is a step.
You and I have talked about Patton before, and I agree. I think Trump is kind of using the Patton approach. I mean, Patton basically, he didn't care what he said and how he said it, and he didn't care what anybody else told him. He was doing it his way, and he was right. And he was the one Allied commander that the Germans feared the most. Okay, the fact that by the end of the war, he had 250,000 POWs marching behind his Third Army is almost insane to believe. And the fact that every morning he had to get up and get on top of a tank and go out in a field because there was another couple thousand POWs from, or not POWs, but German soldiers surrendering and becoming POWs, including generals and you name it. Their commanders wanted to surrender to Patton because they had such respect for him because they felt that he ruled from power and led from power. So I agree that there's some similarities, MX. But again, I just think that Trump is not a politician, okay, and I'll grant him that, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't bite his tongue. He couldn't be a little bit more diplomatic in some of the things he says. And I agree with you. If it's a choice between him dropping F-bombs and us having a nuclear warhead aimed at us, I'll take the F-bombs. I agree with you, but I still think we have the right to our opinion.
I'm not worried about my Easter eggs getting stepped on or an F-bomb now and then. And I'm going to let you go after this. You know, when we came through the Boilermakers, and our boss, we knew that when we made a mistake and he come down on us, we knew that he meant well for us. And I don't know what goes on now, but yesterday's program, and you could disagree, and it's a good program, is the reason why I don't want a woman for president. And thank you, Tom. And
hey,
have
MX,
a good day.
One last question. My friend Rick just texted me this, so it's a trivia question. Do you know who Colt Brennan is?
No, I don't.
All right. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Morning Call on WJOB 1230 AM and 104.7 FM, and we'll be right back.
Enigenberg Roofing offers roof replacements, repairs, and new construction. Certainteed Shingle Master certified, our goal is to treat every customer and project with respect, courtesy, and honesty. Serving Northwest Indiana for over 63 years, contact us for a free roof replacement estimate at 219-365-8879. Mention this ad and receive a free upgrade to Certainteed Pro Shingles. And Enigenberg Roofing, 219-365-8879.
Indiana wants me.
Know a Hoosier serving in the military or living overseas? Indiana wants every eligible Hoosier to participate in our elections. Military and overseas voters can register and vote securely from anywhere in the world. Voting assistance for service members, families, and eligible Hoosiers is available now. Visit IndianaWantsYou.com or contact your county election office. And remember, Indiana wants you. Message sponsored by your Indiana Secretary of State.
Indiana wants me.
Tech Credit Union supports the essential role of union labor in building strong communities. That's why we offer hassle-free banking, financial empowerment, and a commitment to your success. Save for the future, handle life's challenges, and trust a partner that stands by hardworking union members. Tech Credit Union, the better option for you and your money. Visit techcu.org or call 800-276-8324. Tech Credit Union, supporting union families every step of the way.
Do you like to work with your hands, creating something from nothing? Then think about Laborers Local 41. You'll get 432 hours of apprenticeship training, all while earning a wage with benefits and incurring no student debt. You'll travel to different job sites, learn tons of skills, and in a lot of cases, be the first one on and the last one off a job site. It all starts at laborers41.com.
All right, we're back, and we've got a guest in the studio. It's Scott Miller this morning, and we're going to talk to Scott in just a second, but let's take a quick look at traffic and weather. Traffic in northwest Indiana is still in great shape, folks. If you're on I-65, 8094, the Toll Road, Klein Avenue, all look good. Getting across the line into Illinois, 294 is in really good shape this morning. So is the Chicago Skyway and Lakeshore Drive. A little bit of a backup on the Bishop Ford as it merges with I-57, and that backup is now extending over into I-57. The Dan Ryan doesn't look that bad this morning. Backups to about 47th, but I think it's still kind of a holiday week for a lot of people, so it kind of explains things. If you are headed up to O'Hare, avoid the Kennedy Expressway. It's just a parking lot right now, and it doesn't look a whole lot better on the Stevenson or Eisenhower. So there you have traffic, and let's go to weather.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 38 degrees with highs of 68 and lows of 54. It's going to be a thick cloud covering this morning, then clouds and sunshine this afternoon. Should be windy and warmer. And then tomorrow and Thursday we'll be having highs of 70 and lows of 44. It's going to be a shower in the area early in the morning, and then clouds giving way to some sun and then breezy. Then Friday we'll be having highs of 50 and lows of 37. Should be cooler, a little morning rain followed by clouds giving way to some sun.
All right, and there you have it, traffic and weather. And you're, of course, listening to the morning call on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. Should give that because we're coming up on the 7 o'clock hour. But I'm really excited to have a friend of mine and someone that I've wanted to have on the show for some time, and somebody that I need to have on a regular basis because he's a man of many talents and many hats. Scott Miller. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Tom. Looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, and 845-1100, Scott will take your calls, but you're the chief of staff of the city of Hammond.
I am.
And you're also the former superintendent of schools of the school city of Hammond.
True.
You are obviously well-educated, well-versed on all kinds of things, starting with religion. I don't know if you caught, by the way, I did ask the bishop the question that you posed last week.
And what was his response?
So his response was...
Well, maybe you should lead with what my question was.
So the question was, is it a sin to sneak candy into a movie theater? And it caused the bishop to pause for a second, and he said, that's a great question. And he said, I guess it would depend on a number of things. So he said, he talked, of course, being an attorney, he talked about the laws and, legal system versus, religious thought. But he said it would depend on the person's conscience, largely.
Okay, a sin of conscience. All
yes.
right, I gotcha.
So it was.
So
if
your conscience is telling you, hey, this is a problem, you should probably
not do
that. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was an interesting question because he said, legally, it's not a crime.
It's not a crime.
But still, if the owner says they don't want you to bring candy in, should you do something that you're not supposed to do? So.
I was just trying to have fun with that. That was not. That
you had a lot of fun
question,
with it. You throw out some great questions, and we're friends on Facebook, and I usually look to see what you came up with. What's the latest? And sometimes some of your questions and some of the things that you pose are like, no, I'll pass on that one. But they're very good. And I should point out, among other things, you're also running for county council.
I am District 1, which is the south half of Hammond, all of Munster, and the part of Highland that is west of Kennedy Avenue.
So let me ask you this: this drives a lot of people, including myself, nuts. It's District 1, but when you think of districts, usually they start like at the north or the south. But in this county, it's all over the place. So
Christine Sid's district, which is Robertsdale, North Hammond, Whiting, East Chicago, and Hessville is District 5. Yet mine is District 1. I don't know who did the numbering. The last time they redistricted was based on the 2020 census, and
we're going to put you on the spot a couple of years from now. If you get elected, we're going to put you on the spot and ask you if you've addressed the issue. So, with all the hats that you wear and all the things you've been involved, why decide to run now?
So the story behind that, honestly, is that the incumbent, Dave Ham, which many of your listeners are familiar with Dave, he was the Hammond Fire Chief. He has served with distinction on the county council for 14 years now. Basically came to me and said, you know what, Scott, I'm turning 70 this year. I just don't want to do this anymore. And I had a conversation with Mayor Tom, and we really think you're the person to follow me in this. Would you consider it? So, of course, I went home and talked to my wife about it, prayed about it, talked to Mayor about it, and decided that this was something that I had the capacity to do. It is a board seat. It's not a full-time job like a commissioner. And I know a lot of people, even your listeners, may not know what a county council person does, but they oversee the budget for the county. The commissioners are the ones responsible for the day-to-day operation of the county, but the council oversees the budget.
Yeah, they're the legislative branch.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. The legislative. And so after careful consideration, talking it over, and understanding, too, from Mayor how important this seat is to Hammond and to Munster and Highland, I went for it. And it overall, it's been very positive.
You know, I want to bring up something. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you just said that you said that I know, and I've got the mic. But you mentioned something that, part of that deliberation, part of that consideration was, you said you prayed on it.
Yes.
And one of the things I've always wanted to ask you on the air, I've asked you, we've talked about this just in conversation, but you're a very religious guy. Religion and your faith is certainly a motivating factor in the things that you do. And it's obvious as a friend that you have a very strong belief in your faith, and I think it's wonderful. I just wonder sometimes how do you deal with that, being involved in politics and government, I guess.
So I think the fundamental aspects of my faith that I try to live out are pretty universally desired. They're not controversial. Christ summed up all of the teachings as love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so that second part, love your neighbor as yourself, is what I've tried to do in my public life, right? Is if I have a position of responsibility, how can I use that to help other people have a better life? And that's not a perfect thing by far. Certainly people could point to, well, this happened or this happened. But sometimes it's trying to make lemonade out of lemons. And you're especially in the public education sector in Indiana, you don't have a legislature and a system that is designed to flourish public schools. They have really diluted a lot of the resources, so you're constantly having to deal with struggle after struggle after struggle. But I would say my motivation, what keeps me smiling and happy and everything else is that there is always an opportunity to wake up, it's a new day, and help somebody out.
Speaking of government, another issue, and we've got a caller, but before we go to the caller, I want to ask you this one. Knowing you the way I do, transparency in government is a big issue for you. And in fact, when you became chief of staff, I don't know if you remember, I was sitting in the parking lot of Menards when we first talked, and I called to congratulate you and offered my assistance, and we had a really nice conversation. And I said, what would you like to achieve as chief of staff? And you said, Tom, one of the things I really believe in is transparency. And that's a conversation that we've had so many times about the idea of transparency. So explain your views on transparency in government.
Sure. I think that our residents or the constituents should have access to information prior to decisions being made. And what I'm working on right now with the Hammond City Council, and this has been asked for by some members who frequent our council meetings, is that like access to documents and contracts and agreements that are going to be presented to the council will be available for the public to review without having to FOIA online prior to a meeting. And the county council doesn't have that yet either. They have their meetings streamed. They have to by law. But if you wanted to say, hey, I know you guys are, I see this item on the agenda, I want to review it ahead of time, it's not available online. And in all my critics with the school system, one thing you can't criticize me for is I had everything available prior to the meeting where people could review it, and then when public comment comes, then they can actually speak intelligently because they've had an opportunity to review. In a lot of our governing bodies, the situation that comes up, though, is that they have to rely on a summary from one of the board members, and that's all they have.
So it's a man with a mission. Let's take the call. 845-1100, Scott Miller is here in person. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, first, I want to say there may not be a man of better quality who lives the way Jesus would want than Scott Miller. You know, I've known Scott for a few years. Very, like I said, very good quality. But here are my questions. And like I said, it should be the best, it's the best choice, like I said. And plus his yard signs are top notch. But,
yeah, he does have great yard signs. You're right about that.
Thank you. You humble me.
Also, so I got probably about a two-part question here.
Sure.
First off, how does it benefit the city of Hammond, since you're, like I said, you have a role within the city? Mm-hmm. How would you getting on the county council benefit the city of Hammond? And then in some way, how would it benefit the surrounding communities, like in Munster, because a Munster person may look and be like, okay, there's a person in the Hammond office going for this county seat. How would it benefit, I guess, the whole entire area of District 1?
Yeah, I think those are both fair questions. I'll take them in the order you offered them. As far as how it benefits Hammond I'm a Hammond resident, to have someone from Hammond, the way the county council is set up is that you're supposed to have advocates for the districts you represent. They're not at-large seats where your only vision is what's best for the county. We're representing a district, and my district is Hammond, Highland, and Munster. So my focus is going to be on those three communities. Yes, my day job is for the city of Hammond.
Yeah, and I just want to interrupt you because I've gotten two texts now asking the question, does this mean if you become a county council member that you're stepping away from the city of Hammond?
Yeah, that is a great, thanks for bringing that up. There is no conflict. The legal standard is you can't have two roles in the same level of government, and you can't have two elected lucrative positions, and I'm not elected as chief of staff. Okay. I'm essentially employee number one for the mayor who is elected.
Yeah, I know that feeling a little bit.
Yes, you've been wore those shoes several times in your career.
Oh yeah, it's like a revolving door. Every time there's a change in chief of staff, okay, Dabertin, you're chief of staff for a couple of weeks. Anyway,
I think especially when you look at something like the Bears. Let's talk the Bears real quick. If you read over the deal that was presented by the Indiana legislature, one of the things in there that they're expecting is for Lake County to pass a 1% food and beverage tax. Now, if the Bears say yes. So that's where it's going to be very advantageous to have a Hammond guy on the county council to author and to help push that legislation through. I don't think it'll be controversial, but still, that's going to come from me to pass this tax on eating out. It doesn't affect your grocery bill, but it's if you want to go to eat out, 1% will go to help pay off the debt to build the infrastructure around the Bears. The stadium is privately funded, but the infrastructure is debt that will be raised through innkeepers, food and beverage, and in a venue tax. Like if part of your ticket price will go to pay off the investment. But that's one example for why it matters that I'm Hammond. As far as any Munster or Highland residents, I am just by my heart. Lake County is so diverse, right? Like if I remind people, Schneider is part of Lake County.
Yeah,
and
people forget it, but I mean, it goes from Whiting to Schneider. You're right.
So we have the very urban setting, we have a very suburban setting, and we still have a rural setting. All is part of Lake County. So just who I am as a human, I want to make good decisions and really my job as a county council person is to make sure your tax dollars are spent well. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, is to make sure that every dollar that comes into the county is not wasted and is spent in a good way. So that's what I would say to the residents in Munster, Highland, Hammond, and the whole region is if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, you can hold me accountable for how the dollars are spent.
Okay, go ahead. You had a second question.
Well, no, I mean, like I said, those are both of them. But real quick, like I said, there's not a man of better character than you running for the city council seat. I definitely think Tom needs to share what he posted on County. Thank you. I think Tom needs to share that Facebook post and give you that endorsement right now. Because, like I said, you're a man of great character. You know, definitely live the way Jesus would want. And like I said, sometimes, you know, people may not like that way, but, you know, ultimately that is the best way to live. So thank you, Scott. You're a great guy. And like I said, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. 845-1100 is the number to call. And can't see. Okay. So let me ask you another question.
Sure.
You talked about of course, you run as a district councilman.
Mm-hmm.
Your primary responsibility is to represent the people in Hammond, Munster, and Highland.
Yes.
But you also become part of a larger body, a body of 7 individuals that have terrific, if not immense power when you really think about it, because they not only hold the county purse strings, which a lot of listeners, and rightly so, complain about waste in government, and the county historically has not been the most efficient operation, okay, by any means.
Fair.
And so you've got your hands full on that side. At the same time, you've got to work with at least 3 others to get a majority. And that hasn't always been the case either. Now, I'll give Dave Ham a lot of credit, because when Dave Ham was on the county council and before he was state senator, Dan Dernalt, and he basically kind of forged an alliance and said, you know what, I could care less. And I remember Dave Ham telling me about the conversation, and Dan told me the same, that they both said, you know, we care less about whether we're Republican or Democrat. We're just going to work together and do the right thing. And they were able to break down some of the barriers that existed prior to them being on the county council when it came to, we can't work with a Republican, or we can't work with a Democrat. The county council has both Republican and Democratic members.
It does.
How are you, what are your plans, and how are you going to continue, I guess, that level of cooperation that's existed because of Dave Ham? And a lot of people don't realize Dave Ham's not one of those guys, and you're not either, that's going to be out there constantly with your name and your sign and everything else. Dave's a politician, but he's a politician more on a one-on-one basis than somebody that gets a lot of news and a lot of coverage.
So that's a great question. And for your listeners, if you're not familiar, the county council has 7 district representatives. Currently, the way it's constituted is there's 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans. 4 of the seats are probably going to change. It could be more. But however it ends up being constituted, I think one of the real challenges in our society, Tom, is the polarization of politics. And to me, the pendulum rests naturally in the middle. And unfortunately, when it moves too far to one side, the response seems to me to be, instead of to bring it back to the middle, it's to overcorrect and just bring it to the other extreme, which is no good either way. Whether the over extreme is to the blue or to the red, that's not good for where we need to be, because what you're describing is how we grew up, where even though we might have differed on certain policy issues, we saw value in each other as Americans. Like that's how we were raised.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I can remember. Look, I remember when Ronald Reagan was elected president, and I was a Democratic precinct committeeman, and I can't remember his name now, but he was the county clerk. He was out of East Chicago, and we had a meeting, and he said, okay, well, he's the president. We have to support him. I mean, that's the way it used to be said. It wasn't like, wait 4 years, we're going to get rid of him.
Yeah.
You know, well, let's start up let's start up the scandal machine. It was, okay, he's our president now. We have to support him, and we've gotten away from that. And so that's very refreshing to hear you say that.
So in my context with the county council, I'm absolutely going to work with. They're all deserving of respect. If they've earned that seat, I'm going to work with them, no matter what. Nobody's going to be set aside because of me. And honestly, my whole career, I didn't judge people based on their standing, the merit of their ideas. I let the merit of the idea rise to the surface. So if a custodian came to me and said, you know what, I have this good idea, I didn't say, oh, well, you're a custodian. No, I said, well, that's a fantastic idea. Let's use it. And so I don't care where the idea comes from. If it's a good idea to improve county government, I'm happy to support it.
I'm gonna ask you an oddball question, but you and I actually have joked before about coming on the radio and doing a discussion on books.
Oh boy!
And so, other than the Bible, we'll leave the Bible out. Give me a name of a book that you've read recently, and Jed's going to take notes here because Jed's going to be in that discussion on books with us one of these days. Anyway, give me the name of a book that you'd say has influenced you recently in your thought process.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the book called Generations, and it is a study based on actual data, like, and not just one survey, but like a comprehensive study of all the research about generations. And it starts with it gives a cursory summary of like the greatest generation and prior to that, but it really starts with the baby boomers, and then it hits Gen X, then the millennials, then Gen Z. And what I really like about it is not only does it affirm who I am as a Gen Xer, but it gives you insight as a leader and as a person into some of the pain points between generations, right? And this is, I'll give you a simple one, but one that is backed up by science. When you're a baby boomer or a Gen X, when your boss comes to you and says, hey Scott, or hey Tom, I want you to do this task, we don't respond automatically with, well, can you explain to me why I need you to do this task? We just go get it done.
Right.
We just go get it done. But that's a generational difference that pretty much ended with Gen X. Millennials and Gen Zers want to know the why. They want their boss to come to them and to actually explain the why. And they want their boss to be visible. Like, they don't want a boss who's just back in the back room. They want to know, and they want to know the mission, and they want to feel connected to it. And I don't think that those were values when I was growing up. It was more, if the boss said to do this, you just did it.
All right. Now, I've got to interrupt and tell you that we have not had this discussion about the book.
Yeah.
Okay. But it was actually a book that I was looking at the other day online, saying, "Gee, this would be an interesting book to read."
It's very interesting.
Because I've mentioned before, there are some significant generational differences, and when I do training for my clients, one of the big challenges right now is how do we get these other generations to embrace the values that we had? The baby boomers, for example. I heard that conversation as recently as yesterday at lunch. How do we embrace it? And my point is, well, maybe instead of trying to impose our values on them, we need to understand their values more, because we're missing it. So that's another book. I'm reading a book called Streak of Luck, which is a biography on Thomas Edison.
Oh,
and we think of Thomas Edison was probably one of the greatest inventors in all of history. I mean, truly amazing that the impact that this man had. But I'm halfway through it and realizing that he came from a meager background, pretty much self-taught, which makes it even more impressive that he was able to come up with these amazing inventions, and the fact that, I guess the message that I'm finding from the book is that Edison had no fear of failure. He didn't care. It was like, okay, this didn't work. I mean, he went and he sold, gold Golden Company the idea of the automatic stock ticker, and he literally sold them on the idea without producing a working model. And then they came to him and said, okay, well, let's see the working model. Let's see it. And he's like, well, we've got some additional tinkering to do. And it was always like, we can get it done. We just have to find a way to do it. And so I found that interesting. And one of these days after things, calm down, you're going to come on. We're going to talk about books, because I think maybe it's even a podcast, because there are so many books that are so interesting to read and such an influence. So we got to do that.
The fear of failure thing, I just want to tie it to my own story. Like after we lost the referendum and I had to lay off all those people and close schools, like that, I mean, that could have ended me, right? Like my career, my everything. I mean, that was definitely the lowest of the low for me. But I think, going back to my faith, that it teaches you to get up, that there are good things in life, and to try again, right? And so I give a lot of credit to Mayor for recognizing that it wasn't me that was the problem. The situation was a no-win situation. And so I've loved being chief of staff. And so when this opportunity came to run for county council, I could have said, oh, well, some of the haters might come back out, and, it could be no. It's like, I'm not scared of that. Abraham Lincoln lost elections. Thomas Edison, used his failures to become stronger. And that's who you have with Scott Miller right now. I'm in a great headspace. I am super positive. I'm excited to represent our community.
What I find interesting about you, and again, we've had disagreements before, and we've sat there at lunch and argued with each other, but you have no fear of presenting your view, okay? At the same time, you also are willing to accept opposing opinions. I mean, you are you're very good. You're very good at that, and I find it refreshing, because there aren't a lot of people who want to run for political office that are willing to take on the naysayers. And in fact, even on your Facebook postings, there was somebody yesterday, I won't say the name, but there was somebody who basically said something about you, and you said, well, you and I have known each other for a long time, and there was a time where you and I could agree, and I look forward to the day where we can agree together and we can discuss things again. And that's your approach. It's not like, well, basically, the hell with you, I'm not going to deal with you. It's like, okay, I understand you don't agree with me, I don't agree with you, but we can find that common ground, and I think that's refreshing as well. Let's take a quick break. Scott Miller is here, and then at 7:35 we have a paid political program with Jerry Williams for Lake County Sheriff. We'll be right back.
For over 100 years, Roofers Local 26 has been keeping Northwest Indiana dry and safe. Since 1919, our highly trained members have built a reputation for skills, safety, and reliability. With a 4-year apprenticeship and certifications in OSHA safety, first aid, and CPR, we deliver quality you can trust. When you need roofing done right, choose Roofers Local 26, protecting what matters most for over a century. For more information, visit www.roofers26.com.
Are you sausage curious?
Who's ready for Polish?
Big Frank Sausage has the very best Polish food in the region.
You had a mouthful of Big Frank sausage?
We have a full bar, dine-in, carry-out, delivery, and catering available.
I've had a mouthful of Big Frank sausage.
I've got a mouthful of Big Frank sausage.
219-378-9556. Smacznego i na zdrowie.
Who's ready for Polish?
What if one evening could change a life? At Legacy Rising, every moment helps bring hope to children, families, and individuals across Northwest Indiana. Join Mental Health America of Northwest Indiana on May 7th at the Hard Rock Casino, Northern Indiana, for an unforgettable night of inspiration, elegant dining, and powerful stories of resilience. Your participation helps fund critical mental health programs supporting those who need it most in our community. For tickets, text Legacy Rising 2026 to 33100 or visit our website at mhanwi.org.
I'm Jerry Williams. For over 35 years, I protected Lake County as a state trooper and interim police chief of Gary. This is my home, and keeping our community safe has been my life's work. I've dedicated my career to fighting crime. Now I'm running for sheriff to get the job done and deliver real results. As a crime fighter, not a politician, I'd be honored to have your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Jerry Williams for sheriff.
All right, we're back in a couple more minutes with Scott Miller. And again, folks, if you notice, I've got a little excitement in my voice because he's truly a fun guy to talk to, and very well versed on so many things. But running for Lake County Council now, we've got some more callers, so let's take those calls and we'll close out this session. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Scott.
Hello.
I was wondering, given your focus on transparency in that book you were reading.
Hi, George. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm wondering, do you really believe that people that are like Gen Z in their 20s and stuff, do you think that they've evolved enough with respect to their values in terms of the risks that they confront by all the idealism that they infuse a lot of their decision making with? I don't find them realistic. I find that idealism gets in the way of the, I'm going to use the word cold, cool pragmatism required of good government. And I just wondered if you, given your the infusion of your own religious background, if that idealism isn't balanced, or should it be balanced? How should it be balanced? Well, what was your take on the critique, if any, in that book about the Gen Z and the millennials as to how they approach that? They it sounded like they wanted to say in management there, and I wondered how practical is that. So I didn't.
Sure.
I wasn't really clear on what your stand was on that book.
Yeah, so I thank you for the question, George. And I would say this is that one of the themes of the book, and I would find this observation to be consistent with what I've seen, is that most generations are idealistic when they're in their 20s. Like if you go back to the baby boomers, I mean, you have peace and love and hippies and all of that, and a part of it is I don't want to put a value on it, but I'm going to say the word maturation process, but it's as you age, your priorities change because your life changes. You know, a lot of times you end up married, you end up with children, and you become part of the American process. You know, you get a more stable job, you have a more stable income, and some of those things have a tendency to curb your idealism as you grow.
And George, you and I are products of the baby boomer generation, and you bring up a good point because without going into detail, we were even exchanging some comments the other day about an issue involving another entity online, and there's a difference in the way people approach work than what you and I were used to. So yes. I think it's refreshing that Scott has that appreciation and that understanding that the way we approach things, do what do as you're told, do as I say, is not the way the workforce works these days, and they're not as accepting as some of the things that I think you and I experienced.
I would say
but that's the crux of my question. Go ahead, Scott.
I would say that the idealism of whatever the younger generation is, because there'll be something coming after Gen Z as well, is that it's the responsibility of the older generation is to listen and honor and understand that the environment that they're living in was created by us. I mean, like it was created by us. So the decisions we made in prior generations have a direct impact.
And I think that's one thing that myself and because I know George pretty well, I think you'd agree, George, that we were taught to have that respect for our prior generations, and I'm not sure that level of respect exists.
That is a real concern for me. I spoke to, we're trying to start up this ARP endorsed city thing. The council and mayor approved it, and I'm helping to try to get the committee off the ground. And one of my comments to the group recently was, a disturbing trend to me is now the number of parents who no longer have any relationship with their adult children. Yeah. And this has been kind of profiled in other places, but that's not healthy for our society to have these breaks where our adult children say, well, I'm not going to deal with my parent anymore. I'm not going to show them the respect that they raised me and brought me into this world. So we need to try to restore those types of bonds, because I have real concerns over that value.
George, we've got one more caller, so I apologize, but we're going to move on to the last caller.
Yep.
Good morning. You're on the air. Good morning.
Oh, I didn't know I had time. I probably don't have enough time
Go ahead.
to give all my background. I just like to tell this George character that I'm from Cherryville. I'm right next door, next to this Munster Park. I wish he would see to it that us local residents that drive by that park are able to go there at a fraction of price. They want $80. I'm not going to pay it when I go to Cedar Lake for free.
You're talking about the Munster Millennial Park, where they charge to get in there?
Park, correct. If that was built, I don't know if that was built with federal funds or not. I understand the Hilton is supposed to put a resort area. I didn't see him digging anything or anything like that.
So this is so I believe that was a decision of the Munster Town Council. That's not a county.
Right, that's not a county issue.
I know. I talked to him. I've talked to him.
Right.
I've talked to him, and I could afford it, but I'm very. I didn't get to make my millions by being stupid.
Right, but
So
the
I
questions
just told him,
we're
look,
talking about the county council that Scott's seeking the position to represent Hammond, Munster, and Highland.
Correct. I'm in Cherryville. Cherryville we're next door neighbors. I don't see why.
No.
They don't give us a break, especially
Well, but that's
seniors.
but sir, again, that's not something that the county council can handle. That's something that goes to Munster, to the town of
But
Munster.
it's a county issue, correct? Isn't that a county issue?
My understanding that was a local decision made by the Munster Town Council, not the county, not the Lake County Council.
Yeah. No, the
They didn't
Millennial
get any
Park
funds from the federal government at all to do that park?
They did, and so I think Scott and I both can answer this. You get federal funds, right? But it's still under local control. So it ultimately depends on who.
It's
who
under
controls
local control, but with federal funds, well, I guess I have to take that up with this character named Marvin. Because,
Mervan.
like I said, I used to be a Democrat, and I gave that up after that Bakke decision. In fact, my friend even ran for the mayor of Hammond, Petrick.
Okay.
But I would never vote Democrat. Never.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for the call. Well, we'll kind of maybe wrap things up again. I want to point out you're running for county council, 5th district. First district, excuse me. I'm in the 5th. You're in the 1st. Oh boy!
Well, the good news is you don't have to remember that when you go to vote, the
name shows up.
The name shows up.
And again,
and I will mention early voting is open now. I got to vote for myself yesterday. That was the first time I got to do that.
I love early voting.
Yes.
To me, I know I agree with the idea of showing ID to have to vote. We've done it in Indiana for years. I don't think it's a big deal. But the idea of early voting versus everybody showing up on the same day makes no sense. You can go to downtown Hammond to the courthouse,
That's
right?
where I went, yep.
And it's usually where I go. And I actually thought about it yesterday. I knew yesterday was the first day, and I thought about it. And I had a meeting. I didn't make it there. Otherwise, I probably would have run into you. But early voting is on right now. It's in a number of locations. You need to go out and vote, folks. But again, Scott, pleasure to have you on. Want to have you back. Lots of things that I want to talk to you about.
This is
we
great.
can cover 3 hours pretty easily, you and I.
I think we could.
But great to have you here this morning, and the best of luck to you. And again, 5th District County Council.
First.
Oh boy. Well, and I just said, I didn't do bad at math, and I'm really screwing up. 1st District County Council. Scott Miller is a candidate for Lake County, and it's great to have you here as an interview this morning.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back. And when we come back, we have a paid political show with Jerry Williams. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's the simplest expression. The smallest thing that changes everything. A smile. So easy. A smile lights it up, apologizes, and welcomes unconditionally. Because the shortest distance between two people is a smile.
Thank you.
Strag & Van Til, where making life easier starts with a smile.
IBEW Local 697 electrical contractors bring the highest standard of electrical work to Lake County homes, schools, and businesses. From everyday fixes to once-in-a-lifetime builds, we don't just get the job done, we get it done right and up to the highest safety standards. When you need electrical work, hire the professionals who power Indiana. Powering Indiana, Lake County, bringing excellence to the job, creating a brighter future for our community.
It's the simplest expression. The smallest thing that changes everything. A smile. So easy. A smile lights it up, apologizes, and welcomes unconditionally. Because the shortest distance between two people is a smile.
Thank you.
Strag & Van Til, where making life easier starts with a smile.
Ogren Insurance, Hammond's oldest family-owned independent insurance agency, now in its third generation providing clients in the Chicago area with products from quality insurance companies to handle your every need. Regardless of driving history, Ogren Insurance can find the right coverage for you at competitive prices. To learn more about the insurance solutions and services we offer throughout Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, call 219-933-0076 or visit our website, ogreninsurance.com. We're located at 6929 Homan Avenue in Hammond, Indiana. Do business locally with someone you know and trust.
All right. Good morning. And this is a paid political program on WJLB 1230M, 104.7 FM. And we are talking to none other than Jerry Williams, a candidate for Lake County Sheriff. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
And I want to talk to you about why you're running. And let me just begin by asking you to kind of introduce yourself to listeners and viewers who probably know the name but don't know the background. So
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about your qualifications?
Absolutely. So I'll start off, and I want to make sure I got this mic is wherever you guys need
Mic
that.
works well. This is a
Good.
lot better than the old headsets.
Right. Good deal. Good deal. Well, first off, again, Jerry Williams. I grew up here in Gary, right there on the east side near Emerson High School. Me and my dad and the rest of the siblings, we moved there probably in the late 60s, right after my mother passed away. And so there was 7 of 12 of us still at home at the time. So my dad had the challenge of raising 7 of us that were still underage by himself, and became he truly was our hero. The way he handled himself, conducted himself in the community, and we miss that touch and that understanding of what a mother's love is, but boy, he did a yeoman's job trying to fill both voids, and so I always like to give reverence to him throughout that process.
Yeah, I have a similar story. One of 6 children raised by my mother, and you learn those family values too.
You do
from those types of experiences. So
absolutely.
So family values obviously got you started.
It did,
and then you went into law enforcement.
Yeah. Well, what helped get me, that built my foundation. So I always got to give a shout out to my family, because they are my rock. To be quite honest with you, my wife Doris and I graduated from Horseman High School, and 7 kids, 4 boys, 3 girls, and 3 of my sons are police officers as well. 1 here in Lake County, and I have identical twin sons that are both troopers out of Indianapolis.
Wow.
And so we have a host of them. They call us the new version of Blue Bloods. Right?
So including yourself, 4 members of your immediate family are in law enforcement.
Yes.
Wow, that says a lot. That says a lot. That's one of those aspects of your qualification that I don't think anybody else is going to be able to match.
Yeah, some of that's probably because I'm probably the oldest of all of the candidates too, as well. Because my twins that are the youngest of my sons, they've been troopers now for 13, almost 14 years. So
wow.
I started to date myself a little bit in that respect. So
a little bit.
Yeah.
So you obviously you were an Indiana State Trooper.
I am still currently.
Yeah. And you've been in law enforcement now how many years?
Total of about 35-ish years. I started out as a correction officer with the Lake County Sheriff Department, and after spending a few years there, and which really established a base of how to treat people and how I conduct myself even today. And then this is my 33rd year with the state police.
And you currently you've held some pretty impressive positions too in law enforcement.
Yeah, so I've been very blessed throughout my entire career to include, obviously I did my road patrol time here in Lake County. I spent about just shy of 10 years as a trooper here working in Lake County in and of itself. I was one of those fortunate ones that was able to come back home and not go to another area within the state. So being able to come back home and work as a trooper here in my own backyard was definitely one of the highlights of my career. And then I progressed on up. I worked on task forces, federally led task forces for doing gang investigations, homicide investigations, undercover work, and the likes. And then eventually began to get promoted up through our ranks to the rank of major that I hold now. So I've held the rank of sergeant. Went down to Indianapolis, worked on contracts and grant writing in our fiscal division for about 2 years there. And then from there I transitioned, and I kind of got sent in other areas. You kind of wherever those needs and expertise was, that's kind of the way the path took us. So then I spent another year working in human resources, writing our and structuring our hiring processes, recruiting processes back then. What we call a lateral program today, where you take officers from other agencies and you put them into a modified program to bring them onto your agency. So was one of the catalysts that did that, and then spent about a year working with Department of Corrections to help with some training there and setting up what now is their police or armed force within the Department of Corrections for the state of Indiana. And then eventually was promoted to the rank of first sergeant, where I spent a few years working in internal investigations, doing EEO investigations across the state of Indiana. And so having an understanding of that accountability, that transparency of how to police yourself as an agency, which is, of course, one of the bedrocks for us as an agency itself. And then eventually promoted to the rank of lieutenant, where I got an opportunity to come back home here as the district commander. And what's unique about this area, what's called the Low District, is that this is probably one of the diverse and second largest districts within our portfolio, 7 counties to include Lake County. So having an understanding as a commander of how to administer public safety resources, whether I'm in an urban environment in Gary and East Chicago to the most rural environments of Stark and Pulaski County, knowing and understanding how to meet each community individually and collectively, how to leverage those resources to make sure that you bring to bear what those communities might need from a state police platform. And so it gave me that understanding. And then eventually I was promoted to the rank of major, and I sat on our executive staff for about just shy of 12 years, just around 11 and a half. I was then invited down to our executive staff by then Superintendent Carter of the State Police and now former Vice President Pence. Mike Pence invited me down, and I joined our staff, and I worked in our logistics section. Why is that important is because it gave me I have an understanding of how to deal with complex issues as it deals with budgets. I managed over $400 million in daily assets, to include all of our assets when it comes to cars, guns, helicopters, new construction. A new construction building that you might see now at State Road 2 and 65 is one of my projects, along with two other construction projects. So I understand large-scale infrastructure projects and how to manage those to bring them in on target and under budget, because as you know, Indiana likes to be able to have that surplus, and so making sure we manage that in that respect.
Well, let me just say, you mentioned that you've done grant work, you've done human resources. Those are all administrative skills that you need to be the sheriff of Lake County, because the Lake County Sheriff's Office is a huge operation.
It is.
And so, all of these skills that you're talking about are applicable directly to that position. Absolutely it is. And then you got that aspect of what I like to call the crime fighting component of it. So back here in, I think, 2022-ish, with a request from then Mayor Prince to Governor Holcomb and Superintendent Carter, asking for some help with the agency. And so I was tasked with coming into my own community, which was, of course, a blessing, and being able to work with those great men and women of the Gary Police Department to include becoming the interim police chief, again, managing at a much larger scale. Of course, Gary Police Department is the second largest police department in the county, and so spending that 18 months, 6 months as the interim police chief, helping to do the best we can to help manage all aspects of a police operation. So the next question is, why me? The why me is because as an agency, we already did that, as we were considered, or still considered, one of the leading state police agencies in the country that have went outside that comfort zone. Most state police and highway patrol agencies don't like to engage in local matters. It's just not one of those niches they like to be in. But Governor Holcomb and Superintendent Carter were a little bit outside the box thinkers in that respect, and they didn't mind taking risks to engage in communities and figuring out ways to help out more intimately. So we did that across the state, and not only across the state but across the country, working with the Michigan State Police to do similar programs and efforts with Detroit, Michigan, Lansing, Michigan, Illinois State Police, where we worked with our neighbors and still work with our neighbors with Harvey, Illinois Police Department to help them restructure and bring some best practices within those agencies. So managing police agencies at a much higher level than most candidates could understand. I'm just fortunate enough to have that exposure and that experience.
So what would you say is the most pressing public safety issues facing this county?
No question, fighting crime is always going to be number one for law enforcement in and of itself. Making sure and how we manage that law enforcement component is really having a targeted approach to it. For that small percentage of bad guys, as I like to describe them, that want to prey on us and make the rest of the community victims, making sure that we use smart data to target those individuals, to get them out of our community, and as importantly, figure out ways to keep them from returning into our criminal justice system is equally as important in that respect. And then we can't leave out our jail. Again, I'm passionate about the jail because I spent several years there, and so I hear from the officers about the conditions that they have right now, the working conditions, working 16-hour shifts, mandatory, people losing their families because they can't get away from work, and the working conditions doesn't appear to be conducive for a healthy working environment. And so having an understanding of how to address those issues firsthand after working with the Department of Corrections, being inside the jail itself for several years, I know how a smooth operation worked for me, now dated 35 plus years ago, but I understand how a cohesive environment should be working inside that jail, all the way up to include the warden of that jail and, of course, the sheriff of the agency itself. So having that real life experience certainly gives me a leg up in understanding what it should be and what it needs to be going forward, along with working with some other agencies across the country to do just this very same thing, to include recruiting and the likes when it comes to corrections.
So you're a career law enforcement member. You're not a politician.
I am not.
And so why, at this point in your career, did you decide to want to run for Lake County Sheriff?
Probably first and foremost, I am. You know, people says, Jerry, be careful, don't bring religion into politics. Well, I'll let those folks that make those statements make those statements. What led us here was prayer, first and foremost. My family and I and my wife praying on this process when I began to see and have folks approach me about, hey, we can do something bigger and better here in our community. And Lake County deserves a leader that understands complex investigations, understands complex high-level management and transparency when it comes to managing operations at a higher level than most folks could say they have experienced, like I have in that respect. So just bringing that accountability. And at the end of the day, I love my county. I just spent the last 17 years of my career with the state police, traveling back and forth to Indianapolis. I live right here locally in Lake County. Now, the state police affords me the opportunity to move just about anywhere in the state that I choose to, and still work in the capacities that I do. It was intentional to stay home. One, I wanted to be close to my family. One of my 7 kids, my oldest daughter, passed away in 2019.
Sorry to hear that.
Very sickly, thank you. And so me and the wife, there was no question that we wanted to stay as closely connected to her and my grandson, Jeremiah, as we humanly could do. And that's what we did, to include taking care of my mother-in-law and taking care of my father and my siblings, because I know they would have did the same for me. I carry a lot of titles, Mr. Tom, but one of the titles that's most dear to my heart is that of a caretaker. God blessed me to be able to physically and financially and have the ability to take care of those folks around me that took care of me along my path in life.
Well, your words kind of come full circle to where we began, because you talked about the impact of family and your upbringing.
Yes, sir.
How do you build community trust while ensuring basically professionalism in law enforcement? It's a balance. I mean, this day and age, we're so divided on so many issues, and even law enforcement has come into question. I grew up in the 1960s, and the idea was, police were always your friend, and that's not the value that some people have these days. And at the same time, there are those who promote these agendas of, well, we're defund the police, we're going to cut back, and we don't need the police, and that's not the answer either. How do you handle that? I mean, as county sheriff, you're basically the most high-profile law enforcement officer there is in the county.
You are. Good question. So this is what I would tell you about that, is that first off, enforcement and community are not opposite. They go hand in hand. You should be able to manage within an agency with a level of accountability and transparency and consistency. And if I do that and I be intentional about engaging with my community, that's how we build that trust. That's how we build that community that then relies on us, and we can then rely on them. And I promise you to make our community safer. I've been a part of those environments, and I know it's effective and it will work in the future.
When you look at Lake County, you've got communities, Whiting, Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary. You go all the way down to Lowell and Schneider. There are some real differences in the needs and demands. Everybody wants to live in a safe community, but the needs and demands that, say, a large department like Hammond would have, from the county, is totally different than maybe the needs of Schneider or Lowell or Whiting. How do you see yourself handling those diverse differences in law enforcement that exist in the needs that you can provide?
Good question. The same way I did it as the district commander here. Again, what you just described is exactly how I had to manage as the district commander here with the second largest district. Being able to meet each of those communities, whether it's urban or rural, where they at. meet them and bring those resources to them. I mean, that's what my charge is from the superintendent in that role, is to be able to represent him, represent the governor, and meet every community, whether I'm in a cornfield in Newton or Jasper County to the most urban environments of northern Lake County. You have to be able to manage those resources. So I understand that. I've done it. I have proven accountability and success with managing at that level and bringing that to scale here with the Sheriff Department.
20 years ago, I can remember, that there used to be a ratio of 20 and 30 candidates for one opening on local police departments. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
There's been a big change, but you've basically found success even in your own personal life. The fact that you have 3 children that are now, of course, adults, and they're in law enforcement. What's the secret? How do you bridge the reluctancy of younger generations wanting to go into the career of law enforcement? Because, as you said, you've got this huge department, and it's not just police officers; it's also correctional officers and all the support staff. How do you envision your role as sheriff getting people to want to go into a career in law enforcement?
Good question. So leading from the front. You have to be engaged in this capacity, whether I'm in my current capacity where I sit as one of the highest ranking officers with the state police, being intentional about engaging. I did the same thing during my time there briefly with the Gary Police Department. It was a very focused effort to make sure we engage and build confidence and trust with the community that we are who we say we're going to be, and that you can count on us to bring that public safety that you deserve within the community itself. So I don't think that is going to be rocket scientist in that respect. It is really just who you are. I've spent my entire career on public safety and been a public servant, and so that means you're always trying to do something bigger than yourself. This is personal to me. Making sure that I can bring back something home here that I believe not many people can bring. Bringing it at a scale that I can go into this environment with the Sheriff Department and begin day one to understand what needs to take place and have that proven record that not only theoretically to say I've know what it is, to understand what it is, and to have done it at that large scale. I've just managed at a larger level than what most folks in this arena can describe. And I say that humbly, but it's just the facts and the truth. It wasn't by accident that Superintendent Carter and Governor Holcomb said, hey, Jerry, you're the person that we need to go do this. Not just here in Lake County with the Gary Police Department, but with the Illinois State Police, Michigan State Police, Ohio Highway Patrol, working out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That wasn't by happenstance. It was because they felt I was the person that not only could bring to any of those environments the administrative high-level understanding, but the crime-fighting component of it as well, too, which is one of the things that we worked on when I was at home with my men and women at the Gary Police Department, was a crime reduction plan, something that's tangible, that you can measure, and so when I walk away from this role as the sheriff, that I can look back and know that you, as the voting public, will be able to say, he did something different and better with the Sheriff Department to make our community, make Lake County safer. And I'm confident that we can do that with the experience that I bring to the table, and the fact that nobody will work as hard as Jerry Williams, and nobody will care and be as passionate about our community, because I'm going to treat it like it's my own family. And you ain't going to get no safer than that.
Well, you brought up a lot of different skills today. Again, you've been involved in so many facets of law enforcement. If you had to identify one skill or one experience that you think really sets you apart or prepares you for this position, what would it be?
Probably 2 things, and that is the administrative component of it. Nobody has managed and have the proven success at the level I have with police operations. Managing budgets and specific to those responsibilities. So it doesn't matter what it is, but understanding that and fiscally having that fiscal responsibility and integrity to do it at the highest level, to make sure that the community understands that they hold me accountable for every action. that I create a platform with transparency so everyone understands what we'll do and how we'll do. Making sure that the officers understand that we will work and I'll support them 110% to include not only the corrections, making them a part of that consistent platform, but the civilian support staff. Because at the end of the day, the more safer, the better trained they are, the better they perform for you in the community. So when they're rendering service, whatever that service is for the community, they can do it much better and more effectively and efficiently. And that's one of the things that we bring to that table. The crime fighting it goes hand in hand with that. Understanding, again, working with different agencies, the complexities of fighting crime when it comes to drugs, fentanyl, and those things that affect our community in public and in private. Suicides, etc., mental illness, not only within our communities, but also with within the agencies itself, with the police officers, making sure that they have all of the resources necessary to be as effective and healthy themselves. I think it goes hand in hand. I don't know if I could leave that out of that whole process. So those things really, really help define why I probably come across, and rightfully so, as the most highly qualified candidate, because I bring those resources with proven experience behind me that says, yeah, I've operated not only at this level, but probably at one of the highest levels in this process in and of itself, to include managing agencies and helping other agencies do the like and the same. It's just hard to match that.
Well, there's so many facets and so many aspects of the county sheriff and the responsibilities that the sheriff has. It's a conversation that has to continue, and the good news is I believe we're going to continue this conversation again next week, same time. And you've been listening to a paid political program on WJOB with Jerry Williams, who's a candidate for Lake County Sheriff. And again, we'll pick up the conversation next Wednesday again at 7:35. So
I
look forward to it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the time.
And folks, you are listening to WJOB 1230 AM 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, John Doherty's going to join me right here, so stay tuned.
When your home needs help, the last thing you need is a faceless corporation or sales-driven franchise. At Myers Companies, we've been proudly local since 1951, born and raised right here in Northwest Indiana. We're family-owned and operated, built on trust, hard work, and integrity. And because we're family, we treat you like family. Your comfort and safety always come first. For HVAC, plumbing, and electrical done right, choose Myers Companies. Local, family-owned, here for your family.
For a fast and friendly car wash, go to Easy Clean Car Wash. Open 7 days a week in 4 convenient locations: Highland, Griffith, Cherville, and Lansing. Free vacuuming, air freshener, and a towel with every wash. It's fast, safe, and gentle. For more information and hours of all our locations, visit myeasyclean.com. Also, see how you can wash your car daily with our $10 Ultimate Wash for only $19.99 per month. Give your car the best clean at Easy Clean Car Wash.
From the gas in your car to the heat in your home and the roads that you drive on, our work powers daily life. We are USW Local 71, the proud men and women of the Whiting Refinery. We're not just refinery workers. We're your friends and neighbors, raising our families here, shopping in the same stores, and cheering in the same stands. USW Local 71, powering the region because we are the region.
I'm Jerry Williams. For over 35 years, I protected Lake County as a state trooper and interim police chief of Gary. This is my home, and keeping our community safe has been my life's work. I've dedicated my career to fighting crime. Now I'm running for sheriff to get the job done and deliver real results. As a crime fighter, not a politician, I'd be honored to have your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Jerry Williams for sheriff.
All right, folks, we're back. It's back to the morning call on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana. And joining me this morning is John Daugherty. John, great to see you this morning, my friend.
Great to be here, and welcome back to the region.
Well,
after a winter of kind of WebExes with you.
Yeah, you know what? It feels good to be back, but I have to say, when you wake up like yesterday morning and the high was 39,
yeah,
and you're used to 80-some degrees, it seems a lot colder.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's all kinds of medical information that you can provide that explain why I have never felt colder in my life.
And your blood was thinner.
I guess, because I'll tell you what, that's the one shock. You know, you're in Florida, and I hate to rub it in, folks, but 70 degrees for a low and 81, 82 for a high every day, and you get used to it, and then you come back here, and this roller coaster ride we're having is just a shocker on the system.
Yeah. Well, the typical April.
Yeah, absolutely,
Here.
Absolutely. But it's it's hard to get used to it after you've been enjoying the sunshine and the warmth for so long. And I've even noticed the dogs. So I always talk
I'm
about.
sure, yeah.
I think my dogs have to adjust. I mean,
Of course they do.
Sophie's got lots of fur, and I don't think she cares so much. But Luna is kind of short-haired, and Luna looks at you like, okay, this is far enough. We can turn around. Usually she wants to walk forever. But so lots to talk about this morning. But I want to begin with if you don't mind, with the NCAA tournament. It's finally been decided, and Michigan won in a pretty close game, I thought.
Yeah, it was a better game than I expected. And you'll never accuse me of rooting for Michigan, but I was rooting for the former student manager from IU. And just great for him and great for his team. So Axel Lindeborg performed kind of the way I expected him to with the injury he had. Actually, I thought they took a tremendous chance playing him. But on the other hand, when was he going to play in a national championship again? You certainly weren't going to hold him out if he wanted to play and felt he could go and showed that he could at least make a representative performance.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would have been a higher scoring game than it was, but it was extremely exciting and riveting. That last minute and 37 seconds.
Yeah,
they were within. Yeah,
it was a ball game.
Oh, absolutely, it was a ball game, and one for the record books. I think it was really an exciting opportunity. What I didn't understand is, CBS Sports ran the tournament. And they used True and TBS and they did some on CBS broadcast. But I was surprised that they didn't put the championship game on
CBS.
The CBS.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's like the whole reason why you spend all this money to buy the rights to the tournament, to broadcast it. You carry lots and lots of games on CBS, and then the championship game.
Right, I didn't get it either, but you and I aren't TV execs, so
no, we're not. So I want to talk about your column this week because you talk about shingles.
Yes,
and lo and behold, I actually ran into someone yesterday that I did not know has shingles.
Okay,
and talked about just how horrible it was. So explain to people first and foremost, because some people still don't understand, including people our age, which they should, because it's really a a heightened threat for us. But explain what shingles is.
Shingles is the chickenpox virus rearing its ugly head again. 99.5% of us get shingles as children. Chickenpox as children. It's the herpes zoster virus, or the varicella zoster virus, and it runs its course in children, and everybody thinks you're over it, and that's the end of the infection. Well, the sad story is that virus then retreats and lies dormant in your sensory nerve ganglia along your spinal cord, or in your cranial nerves, and if you become immunodepressed for whatever reason, your immune system becomes depressed, whether it's for younger people, if it's fatigue or some kind of life stressor, or they have some serious illness, then the virus will come out and manifest itself along a spinal nerve or a cranial nerve. If it's a spinal nerve, that's why you see the stripe on somebody's torso on one side, and it's a concentrated version of the chickenpox virus, again in that very tight space, and terrible burning and itching and a very painful rash.
And your column, of course, talks about. It's titled, "Don't play chicken with the shingles vaccine." I've gotten the vaccine. It's actually two vaccines.
It's two vaccines.
It's two vaccines.
I got it as well, and you can get it. Generally, you're not allowed to get it until you're age 50, unless you're immunocompromised. If you're a younger person that has HIV or you have cancer or some other serious condition that requires immunosuppression medications, then you can get the virus, the vaccine after age 19.
So one of the problems we have this day and age is there are a lot of people, and part of it is kind of a commentary on the mishandling of COVID. But there are a lot of people who don't want to take vaccines.
Right.
And when it comes to shingles, however, this is a pretty effective, proven vaccine.
This vaccine works extraordinarily well. It's the literature, or I shouldn't say the literature, the manufacturer's literature claims 90% effectiveness. In point of fact, the effectiveness is more like 97%. It virtually eliminates a person from getting the shingles if you get the vaccine, and if you do happen to get a case of the shingles, it's far less severe. So it works. The issue for some people is why can't we get it at an earlier age? And there are various reasons for that, and good reasons. As much as people don't seem to trust the FDA and the Center for Disease Control regarding vaccines, their track record on vaccines as a whole is really good. And vaccines, like the shingles vaccine, have kept people out of trouble, and it's advice that should be followed.
Your column mentioned a couple of situations involving some players.
Right.
So you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, you had the star of the Indiana Pacers got, and he's out for the season with that torn Achilles, but his rehab was delayed by a case of the shingles, and then John Briggs and the Indianapolis Star raised the issue of, well, it's such a terrible disease, and it's miserable when you get it, and you're really sore and run down. You feel like you have the flu on top of everything else for a good 2 weeks. So why can't everybody get the vaccine? So I talked to Dr. Dylan Sloter, one of our infectious disease specialists at Community Hospital, and he explained very well why we wait until age 50. And you wait till age 50 because the sad fact is, Tom, when you hit, like you and I are over the age of 50, technically now we're immunocompromised. Our immune systems really start to fail, and it's dramatic right around the age of 50. And you don't want to go through the vaccine before age 50 because, as effective as it is, there are risks that are involved with getting the vaccine. And
although the relation to the chickenpox you've explained, it is not like getting the chickenpox, getting shingles.
No, well, it's like getting the chickenpox on steroids in a very narrow strip on your body, and on top of that, you feel like you have the flu. Your whole body, you're miserable. People tell me even when they get the stripe around their torso, they have a headache. They feel run down. Their bodies ache, and if you get it along a cranial nerve, which can happen, you get a miserable headache. And the biggest risk when you get in a cranial nerve is if the rash actually extends into your eye, because then shingles can cause blindness.
So, and again, this is just pure ignorance on my part. And luckily, I've had the vaccine, so haven't had any signs. If you get the shingles, there's, as I understand, there's more long-lasting effects to it. I mean, it's not like, okay, I had the shingles for 2 weeks and then.
Well, the thing is, especially with older adults, it tends not to happen. Another reason why you don't need it until age 50. If you get the shingles at age 30, and it happens, you're miserable for 2 weeks, and that tends to be the end of it, unless it comes back again later in life. But when you get the shingles after age 50, you don't battle it off as well, and there's more damage to your sensory nerves, and you can end up with what's called post-herpetic neuralgia, and you get that burning and itching along the course of where the shingles came out for weeks, months, and maybe even permanently, and nobody wants that.
So I remember an individual from Whiting Robertsdale who had shingles, and it changed his perspective, his the things he did in life. It was a dramatic situation. It lasted for years,
right?
And that's why I bring that up. 845-1100, we've got a caller, so let's go to the caller. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Yeah, I've had the shingles shot twice. I was with a new general practitioner, and she asked, "Have you had your shingles shot yet?" I said, "No." She said, "I advise you get it because it's very unpleasant to get shingles." So I got the shingles shot, and then 10 years later, she approached me again and said, "We have some new improved shingle shots."
Yeah, they changed the vaccine.
Yep. And so he said, I advise you to get the new improved stuff. So I did. I have a couple of sports questions.
Sure.
What happened to Purdue in the Arizona game? I thought they were high up in the ratings for possible winner, and they got whomped by Arizona. And second, how do you go from being a student manager to the top coach for a nationally winning team? How did he arrange? How did he evolve in his career to get to that level?
Which one do we want to take first?
I think take the first one. I'll tell you, Walt. My view was Arizona, which was just an unbelievable scoring machine.
Yes, they were.
I mean,
they had a bad game against. They happened to pick Michigan to have a bad game.
Right. I mean, they put up phenomenal numbers, and I think that was that to me. That's the answer. But I'll let John.
I agree with you. They were an outstanding team. I thought they were every bit as good, if not better, than Michigan against Michigan. And credit Michigan for part of it. Michigan's defense disrupted their offense, but that Michigan team was an outstanding team. The other thing that I'll say is Arizona made a run through the Big 12 and got as far as they got. But historically, winning the Big 10 championship or winning any conference championship, not a good idea because it wears your team out. And then you get to the NCAA tournament. Now you're trying to win a second big tournament in a row. And physically it's difficult and mentally it's difficult.
And I'll throw out one more thing, and I know you'll disagree. Jed's dad will disagree, but I think that I watched that game, and I'm not the biggest fan of Matt Painter, and I think that he should have called a timeout in the first half earlier than he did. He let them. You could see them falling apart. There was some confusion on the floor, and I was sitting there screaming at the TV, call a timeout already. I mean, I don't get why coaches don't use timeouts. You don't get like extra credit for saving up your timeouts. And I think he was too slow to react.
Could be, yeah. I had the same sense. I kind of have a clock in my head when I'm watching a basketball game, and I'll just turn to my wife, timeout.
Right.
And he didn't call the timeout until a little later, and then it may have been too late.
And then we want to talk.
In hindsight, it was
right. And then we want to talk about the second question. But before I do, I want to mention this to you, Walt. You know that the assistant coach for UConn actually just got a new job,